All right, let's jump right in, shall we? We've got a fascinating report here on the generative AI startup scene in Southeast Asia, courtesy of Genai Fund, and it's chock full of insights. Buckle up, because we're about to become ASEAN AI experts.
It's a good time to be one. This isn't about chasing those billion-dollar valuations, the unicorns. It's about sustainable growth and a different kind of AI landscape.
Absolutely. The report makes it crystal clear that ASEAN is playing its own game, and we're here to decode it all. So, who are the major players shaking things up in this AI revolution?
Well, no surprises here. Singapore is holding strong. 44% of Gen AI startups call it home. It's that winning combo business-friendly environment, access to capital, and a very diverse talent pool. But, and this is where it gets interesting, the report highlights how even Singapore's own startups are starting to look beyond its borders.
Really? That's so interesting. Why would a startup based in Singapore choose to build elsewhere? Isn't that like, I don't know, leaving the best party early?
Think of it more like finding a hidden gem of a party, one with more room to dance. Two words: cost and talent. Building in Singapore, it's becoming really expensive, and finding the right people, it's a challenge. So startups, they're getting strategic, and a lot of them are looking towards Vietnam.
Ah, Vietnam. I immediately think of Eclipse.gg, that AI tool for gamers.
Yeah.
Built in Vietnam, taking the gaming world by storm. Perfect example.
Exactly. And Vietnam's got this amazing pool of tech talent, and it's way more affordable to operate a business there. This whole built in Vietnam, popular elsewhere thing is becoming a trend. But here's where it gets really interesting. Vietnam isn't just going for quantity, they're laser focused on quality. Did you know they have 19 fine-tuned Vietnamese language AI models?
19. Wow, that's impressive. What does that tell us beyond just, the sheer number?
It tells you they're playing the long game. This isn't just about adopting AI, it's about owning it. Vietnam is positioning itself as a major player in the global AI landscape. They're creators, not just consumers.
That's a powerful statement. Okay, so we've got Singapore holding strong, Vietnam on the rise. But what about Indonesia? Huge population, rapidly growing tech scene. What's their Gen AI story?
That's where things get a little surprising. Indonesia, despite having a startup scene on par with Singapore, they're lagging behind in the Gen AI game.
Now, that is unexpected. I'm really curious, what does the report say about why that is?
It comes down to this. Indonesia's startup scene has traditionally been very consumer-focused.
Hmm.
Think GoTo, Traveloka, big names, huge population. B2B, especially something as deep tech as Gen AI, it just hasn't been their forte.
So are they missing the boat on Gen AI completely?
Not necessarily. The report points to companies like Meeting.ai as a sign of things to come. They do incredibly accurate transcription, even for Southeast Asian accents. They pivoted from a consumer focus to mainly serving government and enterprise clients, and they're seeing a lot of success.
Interesting. So not a lost cause, just a different starting point. Adaptability is key. Speaking of adapting, what about Thailand, Malaysia, the Philippines?
Yeah.
Content to watch from the sidelines, or are they jumping into the Gen AI arena?
Oh, they're in the game, each finding their own rhythm. Thailand's government is all in on AI. They've got a dynamic startup scene and a history of embracing new tech. Malaysia is becoming a hub for AI infrastructure, attracting big investments, and that'll benefit their homegrown Gen AI startups.
Yeah.
And the Philippines, they're using their strength in business process outsourcing to build some really interesting niche Gen AI solutions.
I love seeing such a diverse range of approaches. One thing's for sure, ASEAN is not a one-size-fits-all region when it comes to Gen AI, each country with its own strengths and strategies, which makes it all more fascinating to watch unfold. All right, so we've met the players. Now let's talk game plan. It's one thing to have a Gen AI scene in ASEAN, but it's another to actually crack the market, especially with giants like Google and Microsoft in the mix. It's like trying to, I don't know, open a bakery right next to a Krispy Kreme, right?
It's a tough crowd, that's for sure. And the report, it doesn't shy away from that. One of the big takeaways is the sheer dominance of B2B. We're talking a solid 92% of Asian Gen AI startups focused on businesses as their primary customers.
92%.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's less about going viral and more about winning over those big enterprise clients. No more loaching on product hunt and hoping for the best, huh? What's the strategy there?
Yeah, totally different playbook. This is where things get interesting. The report talks about this thing called GPT wrappers. It's basically like, imagine building a penthouse apartment, top floor, amazing views, but you're building it on rented land. You're relying on someone else's AI model, like ChatGPT, to power your whole product.
Okay, so you've got this amazing penthouse, but what happens when the landlord decides to triple the rent? Or worse, just decides they want you out? Not exactly a sustainable foundation.
Exactly. That's the risk with the whole GPT wrapper thing. You're at the mercy of the model provider. Plus, you're not really differentiated. The report calls these horizontal Gen AI startups. They're trying to appeal to everyone, but they risk getting, well, steamrolled by the bigger players with similar solutions.
So how do they avoid getting flattened? What's the alternative?
Well, instead of building on rented land, imagine becoming a master architect, right? Specializing in these incredible skyscrapers. Sustainable, earthquake-proof, the works. You're not just building anything, you're building something unique and essential. The report calls these the vertical Gen AI startups.
I love that analogy. You're not just another pretty building, you're the Burj Khalifa of your industry.
Exactly. These startups zero in on specific industries, specific needs. They're building solutions that are tailor-made to solve very particular problems. The report highlights Viz.ai as a good example. They're using AI for medical imaging, specifically in stroke care and cardiology. It's a niche, but they're saving lives. That specialization, it's invaluable.
So you've got a killer product, you found your niche, but even then, navigating the whole enterprise sales cycle in ASEAN, it's not exactly a walk in the park, right? The report mentions these long onboarding processes, tons of paperwork, payment terms that would make anyone sweat.
Oh, it's a marathon, not a sprint, for sure. And that's where strong partnerships come in. The report emphasizes strategic alliances, especially with the cloud providers like AWS.
So finding a guide, a mentor in this whole thing.
Exactly. These cloud providers, they're offering startups credits, tech support, go-to-market help. It's mutually beneficial. Startups get the resources they need to scale, and the cloud providers, they get to nurture these high-growth companies.
It's like having a guide through the jungle, someone who knows the terrain. Speaking of scaling, the report mentions that 67% of these B2B Gen AI startups, they've got global ambitions. 67%, that's huge.
It is. They're thinking big from the start, and why not? Why limit yourself when you could be solving problems for businesses worldwide? But going global from ASEAN, it requires a certain finesse. Understanding the nuances of a market, building trust in different cultures. It's not just about having a great product, it's about making it resonate.
So much to think about. Sounds like ASEAN Gen AI startups need to be masters of, like, everything. The tech, the marketing, the business side, and all while trying to not get overshadowed by big tech. It's a lot.
It is, and that's what makes it so exciting. The companies that can navigate all of that, build innovative solutions, tell their story, they're the ones who will shape the future of AI, not just in ASEAN, but globally.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, the strategies, the ambition of these ASEAN Gen A startups. But the million-dollar question is this where we should be putting our money? Is it investment time?
That's what everyone wants to know, right? And this report, it really digs into that. Remember all that talk about a funding winter? Well, it seems like things might be warming up, especially when it comes to Gen AI.
Oh, yeah. Even with all the, I don't know, the doom and gloom we keep hearing about in the tech world.
It's interesting. See, while overall startup funding in ASEAN might be down, there's a real appetite for Gen AI, especially in certain sectors.
Makes sense. I mean,
Right.
gone are the days of getting a blank check just for mentioning AI, right?
Exactly. Investors are looking for companies that are solving real problems, sustainable business models, a clear path to actually making money. And this is where ASEAN startups, they might actually have an edge. Sometimes the best way to win a race is to let someone else take the lead at first.
Learn from their mistakes, you mean?
Precisely. That second mover advantage, right?
Right.
ASEAN startups, they can see what's worked, what hasn't worked in places like Silicon Valley and chart a different course, a smarter course.
So ditch the unicorn fantasies and become like a camel, built for the long haul.
And now you're getting it.
Yeah.
That resilience is very attractive to investors right now. Plus, there's this valuation gap. You're not going to see those crazy valuations like in the US, which means there's a chance for a much bigger return.
It's like finding, I don't know, a hidden gem, a market that everyone else has been sleeping on.
It's the beauty of emerging markets. And the report actually highlights this venture fund that's specifically designed to support this whole ASEAN Genai scene. Genai Fund.
Gen AI Fund. Okay, tell me more. Are they just another VC firm with a fancy name?
They're definitely hands-on. This isn't just about writing checks. They're talking strategic guidance, connecting startups with clients, helping them figure out the whole go-to-market strategy thing. They're really invested in the success of these companies.
So a little bit of investor, a little bit of mentor, a little bit of fairy godmother.
I like that. And they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're predicting that strategic acquisitions, those will be the main exit strategy for a lot of these Asian Genai startups.
Which makes sense, right? You've got all these big companies who want AI, And these startups that have the solutions, but maybe not the size to go public yet. Perfect match.
Exactly. A win-win for everyone. More investment, more expertise, all of that helps build a stronger AI ecosystem. Puts Asean right there on the map as a global leader.
This has been incredible, like a crash course in Asean Genai. Before we wrap up, any parting thoughts for our listeners?
I'd say focus on the fundamentals. Forget the hype, forget chasing unicorns, find real problems, build something that lasts, and understand what makes this region tick. That's the key.
Couldn't agree more. This has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of Asean Genai. Till next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll catch you in the next episode.